Hey, I'm Bill Marion, just inside the Great Smoky Mountain National Park and just outside of Bryson City, North Carolina, on a road to nowhere. And this is a Nose for Life. On the south side of the Smoky Mountain National Park, you'll find a small mountain town that at a glance may seem to be stuck in a temporal vortex. In this quaint town, you'll find the modern conveniences of our age, but you'll also discover an old-fashioned charm that many mountain towns exchanged for tourist dollars years ago. I'm referring to the town of Bryson City in the mountains of North Carolina. It's a laid-back kind of town and quiet, not necessarily on most of your touristy destination guides, but it should be. What with its local bookstores, art stores, bike shops, and unique fly fishing museum, there's a scenic train, a brewery, golf course, and whitewater rafting, and plenty of restaurants. Carved by the fisherman, kayak and tubing friendly Tuckasegee River, and surrounded by the Smoky Mountains, including access to the amazing Blue Ridge Parkway, Bryson City is slowly emerging as a premier vacation and getaway destination for many people looking for something a little more authentic and less commercial. In fact, the Smithsonian named Bryson City one of their 20 small towns to visit. Bryson City is 70 miles southwest from Asheville, North Carolina if you take the freeway, or if you take the Blue Ridge Parkway from Asheville, it's an enjoyable half-day trip. I discovered Bryson City by accident in the middle of winter almost 20 years ago when I had to exit the Blue Ridge Parkway because of the weather. I needed a place to stay until morning and then find an alternate route back to the Tennessee Valley. The locals were extremely friendly and helpful. I complimented them on their amazing town and how it seemed so unique, and we struck up a conversation, and that's when I first heard about the Road to Nowhere. Since then, I've heard countless tales about the infamous Road to Nowhere, rather the Tunnel to Nowhere. It took me 20 years to get back to Bryson City, but I had to see for myself to find out the real story behind Bryson City's dead-end attraction. Now, the story you're about to hear is true. This is a conspiracy-free zone, and keep in mind there are two sides to any story, so I'll do my best to explain both sides when it's possible. If you've never heard about the Road to Nowhere, you'll definitely want to stick around until the end of this video. It's one of those true stories that seems impossible, but it's true. But before we get started, if you're a subscriber, I just want to say welcome back. I'm so thankful you're watching and sharing our content. Make sure you click the little bell for notifications so you'll know when we release our next video. You're the reason we make videos, and we're growing because of you. So again, thank you. If you're new to A Nose for Life, thank you so much for giving our content a chance. I hope you like this video and that you'll watch some of our other videos as well. I hope you'll consider joining our community by subscribing to this channel and clicking the bell for notifications. You're all invited to join our Facebook page at Bill Marion Life and follow us on Twitter at Bill and Carolyn. A Nose for Life is very much an interactive community. We just finished a hiking trip to Lost Creek Recreation Area in Polk County, Tennessee, and we're about to release our activity for August. Every month we plan to have an event, so stay plugged in through Facebook or Twitter. Now, let's get back on the road to nowhere. This doesn't exactly look like a road to nowhere. I mean, it's actually a very pretty road, so what can it mean to say that it's a road to nowhere? I mean, this is a pretty big deal. Even in Bryson City, one of my favorite little towns that we'll talk about later, you know, even in Bryson City, there's a sign that with all the rest of the tourist attractions, it says a road to nowhere. So what's all the hubbub about this road to nowhere? So the road leading outside of Bryson City into the Smoky Mountain National Park, in this direction anyway, it actually closes at a particular point. There's barricades up, permanent barricades to this road leading to nowhere. And it's a real interesting story as to how this actually happened. You know who does know a lot about the road leading to nowhere? Black bears. And I'll tell you why. We just saw one probably a couple hundred yards away from this particular spot that leads past the barricade. We got a little bit of video, very little, because it was a mom and her two cubs, and she was crossing the road, and she really didn't have time to stop and talk for a while. It's probably a good thing that she didn't. But as you know from other videos, Carol and I love bears, so we tried to find her in the woods by looking up through the woods from the road, but we couldn't find her. We didn't want to bother a mom and her kids out shopping for the day or whatever, but it was a pretty cool experience. But anyway, let's check out this road to nowhere. One thing's for sure, this isn't a conspiracy. This actually really happened. And besides, we don't believe in conspiracies on this channel. Okay, I might own a copy or two of Oliver Stone's JFK, and yes, I've used a couple of clickbait thumbnails that suggest a conspiracy or two, but if you watch my videos, you'll learn quickly that I share factual information on this channel. If I can't verify information, I don't use it. I've placed links in the description so you'll know exactly where I learned the information presented in this video. Some of the sources are better than others. Here's the best part. You are invited to fact check and add information or correct my information in the comments. In fact, I love it when people add information or make corrections in the comments. That being said, let's get started. Way back in the 1930s and 1940s, Swain County, the county to which Bryson City belongs, surrendered much of its pristine mountain wilderness land to the government for the war effort. Actually, individuals surrendered their property to build the dam to generate enormous amounts of electricity for the war effort. This resulted in the building of Fontana Dam, which is still the tallest dam east of the Rockies. And surrender is the right word. These mountain folks didn't have a lot of choice in the matter. The justification for this massive government land grab was all about the greater good for America. The country was at war after all, and we needed power. But it's not that simple, and it's not exactly the right answer. It's important to examine how the government takes land from private landowners. See, that's a big deal. Love it or hate it, America historically is all about its citizens owning land. So when the government takes land from its citizens, even if it's at a good price and for a good cause, it doesn't sit well with the public. The legal right for the government to force citizens to sell their private property is called eminent domain. Eminent domain is enacted when the government forces landowners to sell their land for the greater good. Before you think this is an anti-government rant, the truth is, as terrible and damaging as eminent domain is for the individuals who are affected, in many situations the entire country really does benefit. Eminent domain is how we can have interstates, railroads, airports, electricity, phone lines, cable, cell phones, and honestly the list goes on and on. But there are times when eminent domain is used and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But worse, in some cases, the government doesn't compensate communities adequately, and sometimes we simply don't get the whole story, or the story we get just isn't true. Many related websites wax strong and poetic about the purpose of the Fontana Dam, stating that it was needed to power up the top-secret Oak Ridge Research Facility to help build the bomb that ended the war. You know, on a side note, isn't it funny that Oak Ridge has come up a few times in my videos?
Is the actual K-25 facility. And again, there's a lot of security here, so I'm thinking, should I be filming this? Is this like going to be an Area 51 moment, not disappear? I sure hope not, but I am wearing my Slush Show shirt. Bigfoot's been spotted in this area.
Anyway, the Fontana Dam was built in record speed. But about the Fontana Dam being built to power up the research underway at Oak Ridge, well, that's a problem. See, most of the documents available pertaining to the construction of the Fontana Dam mention its connection to the Oak Ridge laboratories as an afterthought, but construction began on the Fontana Dam months before the attack on Pearl Harbor. In fact, there were plans to build the dam before the 1930s, not to mention it's 2 hours from the Fontana Dam to Oak Ridge on a modern interstate. Keep in mind, there was no Oak Ridge during this time period. It was being built from scratch. To connect power from Fontana Dam to Oak Ridge is a Herculean task. It's possible, but it's very hard. And it's not like the Fontana Dam was the only dam being built in the area at the time. Furthermore, the dam wasn't finished until 1944, and Oak Ridge was celebrating its first success as 1,000 uranium slugs went critical in the fall of 1943, which, by the way, is a good thing. If the dam was to power Oak Ridge, and the dam was complete in 1944, it seems like Oak Ridge was doing just fine without power from the Fontana Dam. Maybe Fontana did or does power Oak Ridge, but the timeline suggests that the dam didn't contribute anything until much later.
You know, the tunnel is kind of creepy looking. Carolyn said it best. It looks like something right out of a movie, you know, where you stumble upon this tunnel. But honestly, the town of Bryson City kind of played this up. And a lot of locals do too. It's become its own kind of tourist attraction. And to be honest, I'm by far not the first person to post something on YouTube or whatever video platform you're watching this on. I'm not the first person to talk about this tunnel. It's kind of famous, or rather infamous.
But this is a fact. The Aluminum Company of America, or Alcoa, had been trying to build a dam in that area since 1910 due to the overwhelming power needed to produce aluminum. Alcoa purchased the local power companies, built 2 additional dams at other locations, and purchased thousands of acres of what is now Fontana Dam. But it wasn't enough. A dam the size of Fontana needed stronger backing, expertise, and the know-how. The project was simply too big for Alcoa. So by the 1930s, Alcoa wanted the Tennessee Valley Authority to step in, or TVA, and build the dam. After all, TVA, well, they're the experts at this point at building dams. But TVA simply couldn't get the congressional backing because a lot more land had to be purchased, and some people in that area simply didn't want to leave. And Alcoa may have been an industrial juggernaut, but they couldn't just make people leave, not without the government's help.
Bryson City is not far from Cherokee, North Carolina. In fact, it's about 20 minutes or so, maybe less, maybe 30 minutes if traffic is bad, because remember, it's like a 2-lane road, so sometimes traffic can get a little nasty, what with all the vacationers and tourists like me. But other than that, it's a great place to visit if you're going through Cherokee or if you're visiting the Blue Ridge Parkway. Again, my favorite road on the planet.
Alcoa's big break came in 1941 at the beginning of World War II, when emergency wartime initiatives called for a drastic increase of aluminum. The bottom line is America needed aluminum to win the war, and lots of it. And to make aluminum, you need a whole lot of electricity. So Congress approved TVA's building of the dam, and it went something like this. Alcoa gave its property over to TVA to build a dam, and TVA had to purchase an additional 68,292 acres of land. Over 5,000 of those acres had to be cleared of virgin timber. In return, Alcoa had exclusive rights to all of the power produced by the dam for the next 20 years. 1,113 families were forcefully removed. The exact number of individuals is unknown. 1,000 graves were also removed, and 60 miles of road were relocated except for one, Old Highway 288, which rests at the bottom of Fontana Lake. Every now and then, when TVA lowers the water of Fontana Lake, Highway 288 emerges from the depths as a ghostly reminder to the people of Swain County of broken dreams, broken hearts, and most of all, a broken promise. Highway 288 was an important road until the dam tried to erase its memory. The local residents were promised a replacement highway, but it never happened. Here's what did happen. Now, Old Highway 288 wasn't the greatest highway in the world, but the people who were relocated needed a road in order to visit the graves of their ancestors. Truthfully, this may be just a tad bit lost on our generation, depending on your culture, but in mountain towns of Appalachia, having access to your relatives' graves is a pretty big deal. The government promised to rebuild 288. It was even given a new name, Lakeview Drive. It was to follow the north shore of Fontana Lake, connecting Fontana to Bryson City and into the Smoky Mountains. But the road stopped just 6 miles into the park and ends just shy of a perfect state-of-the-art tunnel designed specifically for the road that was never completed. The road and tunnel to nowhere.
You know, as scary as it looks, what with the graffiti and all, which is actually very nice graffiti, even if it is graffiti, as scary as it looks in here, it's really not. It's basically a tourist attraction. I mean, when we drove up, there were people on horseback riding through it, kids walking around. It's kind of a thing to do when you're in this part of the Smoky Mountains, and it is kind of cool and an interesting story, if nothing else.
Fontana Dam may have helped America win the war, and then again, maybe there were better options. But it's unlikely that the power generated at Fontana Dam contributed greatly to Oak Ridge while scientists were hard at work building the scariest weapon of all time. At least not with the information provided currently by TVA, Oak Ridge, or Alcoa. But the power provided by the dam did enable Alcoa to crank out the war materials at record-breaking speeds. And America won the war. And let's be honest, Alcoa got rich. And I'm happy that we won the war, and I like it when people get rich. But what happened to the Lakeview Drive, formerly known as 288?
It's funny because it gets dark in here. As you can see, you can barely see my face right now, but as you look on the walls, you can see that the graffiti is actually quite fresh. I mean, so obviously somebody's coming up here and washing it. I think this is like anything else, where people are turning something that is a tragedy or something in which the people of the county have been kind of wronged and turning it into a triumph. You know, when we first looked at the tunnel, I didn't think it was that long, but it's a pretty long tunnel. I mean, we've been walking about, 4 or 5 minutes, and we're still walking, and we're just now at the halfway point. So it's a pretty long tunnel.
Paul Harvey used to say, "Now here's the rest of the story." Well, I'm no Paul Harvey, but this story has an interesting ending, no pun intended. In 2010, after a considerable amount of pressure, the powers that be met to discuss the fate of the road to nowhere. But it really started in 2001 when $16 billion was allocated to begin finishing the road. That allocation triggered the mandatory fact-finding process, which included the National Park Service. Finishing the road was estimated to cost $600 million. Folks, that's strike one. Conservation groups argued overwhelmingly that building the road would cut one of the largest continuous tracts of land in half, creating a huge gash in the land, making the road a visible eyesore for many miles. That's strike two. Also, building the new road would destroy 28 miles of the historic Benton-McKay Trail and threaten 140 mountain streams. And that was strike three. The public at large, meaning the entire mountain community in that region, was against the idea entirely and in favor of a financial settlement with Swain County for an estimated $52 million paid over a 10-year time period.
Here's the thing. The county is still owed millions and millions of dollars I mean millions, and it's tangled up in a lawsuit, and I guess it has been for a very long time. I think $12 million was actually paid to the county when it was supposed to be something like $56 million. So the road was kind of like this consolidation prize, so to speak, for Bryson City having to suffer, or the county that Bryson City's in, having to suffer the effects of a dam being built in one of the biggest dams east of the Mississippi. So here's some interesting observations outside of the graffiti, which again, some of it's quite artistic and beautiful, but outside of the graffiti that is obviously being cleaned periodically and painted over, whatever the case is, there's other maintenance taking place as well. As long as this tunnel has been here, there should be all kinds of stuff going on, nature reclaiming itself and all that jazz. But truthfully is that it's rather clean around it and inside of it. So it's being maintained by some entity. I don't know whether it's the national park or the county. I'm not exactly sure, but somebody's keeping it clean. The other thing that I've noticed is, well, it's here. That's interesting to me. Like, why hasn't it been torn down? If a road's not being built here, why hasn't it been torn down? But something else I noticed is that, well, being that the tunnel is here, and Bryson City is an amazing town, town that I highly recommend you visiting, it's almost as if maybe this road not being built through here in some ways is a good thing, because it makes Bryson City that much more amazing. And it's almost as if the business owners in Bryson City and in the county have recognized that, and they're seizing the opportunity in the town to capitalize on the fact that they have been isolated for many, many years because this road hasn't been built. Now, you know, I hate to turn this into some kind of self-help video, but the truth is that people are done wrong a lot, and you may have been done wrong. I've been done wrong in the past, but the truth is that people do get done wrong a lot in life. They just get done dirty, if you will. And the reality of it is that you can take any situation, almost any situation, and turn it into a victory. And to me, as much as I love the town of Bryson City, before I even knew that this road and controversy existed, I loved Bryson City exactly the way it is. And now they are making money off of it. And that's a good thing. So sometimes you can turn a tragic situation or horrible situation into something in which you are winning, and not in that Charlie Sheen kind of winning way. I'm talking about like really winning. We're only about 20 minutes from the Blue Ridge Parkway, and we've made a great video about the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's one of my favorite stretches of road in the universe, and you can actually watch that video by clicking right up here. So check that out when you have time. I'll also probably put a link to that at the end of this video and in the description.
The generation that lived through the ordeal in its entirety from the Bryson City community, you know, that great generation that defeated the Great Depression, polio, and fascism, well, they have a good reason to voice their protest. A promise was broken. Large profits were made decades after the war, but for the people who were removed from their land, their sacrifice continued. And this sign is a reminder of an injustice. But Bryson City moves forward, and they've decided to make lemonade with old lemons. See, the national park maintains the tunnel, and Bryson City has turned the road to nowhere into a tourist attraction. Now, don't get me wrong, people don't go to Bryson City just to see the road to nowhere. Okay, I did, but I'm a geek like that. But I'll be the first to tell you that Bryson City is a long way from nowhere. In fact, it's somewhere people are booking months in advance to visit. Perhaps it's suffered a setback here and there, and yes, it's a bit isolated. And yet, that's what makes it so awesome and worth your time. Some towns try to pretend to be quaint and spend millions of dollars doing so, but Bryson City doesn't have to try. It's a small town people like to visit, because it really is a small town, but with charisma and charm. I've included websites related to Bryson City in the description. If you love the mountains and you're looking for something different, Bryson City is the place to visit.
This town has remained quite quaint, and it's a great place to visit because of that, because it is kind of like you're stepping back in time, but it's actually a very modern town, but it's nestled in the mountains. There's beautiful creeks and lakes and rivers and plenty of hiking trails. And about that road to nowhere, well, the bottom line is it's a pretty amazing spot. I mean, if you have property near that road to nowhere, that means that your property kind of backs up against the national forest, the Smoky Mountain National Park, which I think is pretty amazing. I love Bryson City. I think Bryson City is one of those places that you have to visit if you love the Smoky Mountains, or if you're in the area, if you've never been through here. I recommend stopping here, getting a bite to eat, stay in a hotel room, make your reservations here, and visit the road to nowhere. Some people could argue that this channel is going nowhere, but I say it's an opportunity. Thank you for watching. I'm Bill Marion. This is A Nose for Life.
Again, thank you for watching, and if you have time, be sure and check out some of these other videos.